just about belief. If you believe what you're doing is the right thing, then you'll be able to keep on doing it. It's also important to know that if you realize you're doing the wrong thing, that's when you stop doing the wrong thing. You don't just keep on going just because that leads down a dark path.
Those specific remarks coming from Henry Cavill came just a couple of days before the bombshell shocking announcement that he was leaving The Witcher, and Liam Hemsworth, an actor known for his roles years ago in The Hunger Games and Independence Day, would be taking over Geralt of Rivia in Season 4 of The Witcher. A major downgrade in my personal opinion, as everybody has been pointing out over the last couple of days that Henry Cavill was really carrying that show, especially in Season 2, in which a lot of fans were extremely unhappy with the direction that the showrunners took, and it seems like Henry Cavill himself was very upset. Regardless, there is a number of updates on this situation that we're going to be discussing today, because it has become clear in the last couple of days that Cavill getting his Superman role back isn't really necessarily the problem with why he's not going to be playing Geralt of Rivia anymore. It's more to do with the showrunners. We discussed this in my last video, but one of the former writers and producers on the Witcher Netflix show exposed that there are writers behind the scene that genuinely do not like the games and books and openly mock it behind the scenes. And that might have just been the straw that broke the camel's back, because it really does seem like Cavill, a major gaming nerd, somebody who's passionate about these franchises, he wants people being faithful. He wants the people that are involved in these shows to be faithful to the source material, the stuff that they're working on. That's why he even wanted to get involved in this project from the get-go, because he loves this franchise. He loves the books, he loves the games. But unfortunately, the people that are involved in the show just don't have that same love. And Redanian Intelligence, which is a major source for news on The Witcher, they've had a bunch of exclusives over the last couple of years. Well, they also had a new report that just sheds some more light on this current ordeal, and it makes it very, very clear that Henry Cavill's dissatisfaction with the direction that the show has been taking isn't something that's recent. Back in September of 2021, according to Redanian Intelligence's sources, when The Witcher Season 2 was in post-production and Season 3 had not been renewed yet, we heard from a source that recasting Geralt was a growing possibility at Netflix. The reason for that was that Henry Cavill was considering leaving the series after Season 2 because he and the producers weren't seeing eye to eye regarding content in Geralt's role in The Witcher. At the time, we believed Henry wasn't 100% serious about it. It would not really go through with leaving the series since he fought so hard to get that role, so instead of reporting on it, we chose to sit on the information and see where it goes. And then The Hollywood Reporter in September 2021 said that Cavill had just renewed his contract and would be getting $1 million per episode for Season 3, as opposed to $400,000, his earlier The Witcher salary. So that was apparently what was happening during Season 2, but there's also a number of quotes from Season 2 on the promotional tour in which Cavill may have spilled the beans, either that's accidentally or on purpose, you decide. So in December of 2021, Henry Cavill said that he was absolutely committed to the Witcher 7-season plan on one condition. The 7-season plan is something that the Witcher showrunner Lauren Schmidt-Hissrich announced back in 2019. That was her vision for the show. And Cavill said this just about, 10 or so months ago. He said that his one and only condition was that they must continue to tell great stories while also honoring author Andrzej Sapkowski's work. But the showrunner Lauren Hissrich, around this same time in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, hinted that she and Cavill clashed over the show's portrayal of Geralt in numerous instances. She said, "A lot of the notes he was sending to me were about Geralt's dialogue. Could he, first of all, say more? Everybody came out of Season 1 laughing and loving Geralt's fuming. But Henry was saying that when you read the books, you spend a lot of time in Geralt's head, so how can we put that on the page?" And she additionally, in another interview, talked about a specific instance in which there was some disagreements. Hissrich admitted that when she first wrote the Witcher Roach death scene in Season 2, her instinct was to puncture the moment with a bit of meta-comedy. Jesus. Anyway, Henry Cavill obviously pushed for a more heartfelt moment, and eventually Hissrich caved, which she says she ultimately made the right call. Henry was so unhappy with the line, "Finally I said, you know what, you come up with something. I trust you. You know this material so well. You know the book so well. You don't even have to pitch it to me." And he came back the next day with a beautiful speech that's at the end of Sword of Destiny when Geralt is facing death, and it's such a pitch-perfect moment. And again, just the fact that the Witcher Encyclopedia, that is something that his co-stars on The Witcher have referred to as knowledge and passion of the franchise. The fact that that person, the leading figure behind the Witcher series, is now leaving is just devastating. And I really don't know how this show is going to continue. But it goes further than just this, because again, in December of 2021 on this tour, Cavill made additional remarks. In an interview with Hardware Zone, he was asked, stepping into the shoes of Geralt again for Season 2, what has changed about how you prepare for the role compared to Season 1? Cavill answered, as far as the preparation goes, coming into this, I wanted the character to have a closer relationship to the character in the books. I wanted him to be more book accurate. And so it was more to do with making sure and campaigning for him to sound more intellectual, more philosophical, and to have an emotional side as well, rather than just being a grumpy snowman. Every day I was pushing this stuff as far as prep goes. And next, in an interview with The Star, he said, the toughest part for me was finding that balance between the showrunner's vision and my love for the books and trying to bring that Geralt to the showrunner's vision. It's about treading a fine line there. It's the showrunner's story, and so it's an adaptation. The tricky part for me was finding Geralt from the books' place within that and being able to serve both as much as I could. The things that I pushed for, it was not necessarily just more dialogue, it was bringing a more book-accurate Geralt to the screen. Because as I'm sure you know in the books, Geralt is an amateur philosopher. He's an intellectual. He's wise and thoughtful. Yes, he's at times morose, morbid, and snarky, but it's important for me to have the character be three-dimensional. He continued, and it's tricky to do so, as I was saying earlier, because there's a certain vision and there's a certain set storyline and plot, and so it was about me trying to find Geralt's place within that. All of my asks and requests were along the lines of just being faithful to the source material, and that ultimately is the big problem here and why Cavill is likely departing. He has other roles that he can spend time in, getting invested in, and when this show is departing so heavily from the source material, I know a lot of people are extremely pissed about Eskil being killed in Season 2. He just doesn't see the reason to continue. And this unhappiness isn't just coming from Cavill right now. A lot of the fans are absolutely pissed at these showrunners, especially with all of the recent events that have occurred. We had viral tweets such as this coming from @CursedHat. Henry Cavill leaving The Witcher after begging Netflix for the role and being the biggest fan of the franchise is making the report that the writers hate the books seem more and more plausible. They chase that man away from the series. This is sick. Another user saying Henry Cavill quitting his literal dream role as The Witcher because smug Netflix writers refuse to respect the character or source material is the coolest crap ever. F these endless, soulless, faithless adaptations from showrunners who clearly hate the art that they're adapting. That is a widespread problem throughout this entertainment industry, whether that be on the big screen or the small screen. It just seems like there's so many writers being brought in for these fantasy adaptations and they just don't care at all. And they have to include their own changes just because they think something's funny. It doesn't have to make sense with the actual source material. It's just because they think it sounds good. And most of the time it ends up being an absolute disaster. You can look, the Rings of Power as a recent example. Wheel of Time, I think that was another one. And there are a number of other examples over the last couple of years that can be brought up. It truly is sad how so many franchises, beloved IP, have been massacred by Hollywood. And to be honest, it seems like the only examples of adaptations that have truly worked is when the actual book authors like George R.R. Martin are heavily involved in the adaptation. That just isn't something that happens very often, unfortunately, though. Now, the support for Henry Cavill was mostly widespread, although we did see some outliers, some figures that targeted him for his departure and the support that he's right now getting. Frosk, a former G4 host, she's infamous for a viral clip in which she admonished their audience. But anyway, Frosk said Henry Cavill said some very questionable things around Me Too and dated a 19-year-old as 30 years plus. Seeing people throw themselves at his feet for The Witcher is weird. The show is whatever at best, and it's just a weird takedown of a man that the only questionable thing he said about Me Too was that I believe dating was tougher and he didn't really want to date during that era. Don't really see how that's controversial. And taking aim at a consensual relationship, that's also another odd one. And people really aren't throwing themselves at Cavill. They just see his passion, his knowledge of The Witcher, and they also see how the showrunners have butchered The Witcher, and they feel sad for the guy because he really wanted this to work, and now he's kind of being forced out because he doesn't want to spend the next couple of years on something that he can't fully get behind. Obviously, once The Witcher Season 3 Netflix promotional tour begins in a number of months, he's not going to confirm any of the suspicions. He's probably only going to have glowing things to say about the showrunners and those involved, and that's just because he is a nice guy. But his actions and his remarks that he's made in interviews about the behind-the-scenes activity with The Witcher tell a different story. Now, that specific tweet coming from that G4 host, as ridiculous as it is an outlier. It's an example of just a couple of people that have been taking aim at Cavill. Now, how big this has gotten in terms of his support will look no further than this change.org petition. Netflix, you must keep Henry Cavill as The Witcher and replace the writers instead. This is approaching on 75,000 signatures. And it says, Andrzej Sapkowski himself said about Henry Cavill, I was more than happy with Cavill's appearance as The Witcher. He's a real professional, just as Viggo Mortensen gave his face to Aragorn. So Henry gave his to Geralt, and it shall be forever so. Well, not so, unfortunately. Henry isn't leaving The Witcher because of Superman. Netflix executives have once again made a grave decision against delivering for their fans. And the truth of the fact is that Superman has to play a factor in all of this. He's going to be making more money, and he gets to return to a role that he's actually happy with. And he's already been signed on to a bunch of other movies and such, and that's what this is about. Instead of dedicating the next half or so decade to something that he can't fully get behind, why not work on a bunch of other projects that he can? Now, this change.org petition continues, saying that let us show them in pure numbers that none of us Witcher fans will stand with them and will abandon the show and potentially our subscriptions after The Witcher Season 3 is concluded. Netflix can only exist because of us all paying them monthly to produce content that is entertaining. Unfortunately, all public info points towards a production team making decisions that are completely opposite of the fans' our interests. We already had to suffer through the disaster that was the end of Game of Thrones. Netflix, don't repeat that exact same mistake of holding on to writers and showrunners that believe themselves to be superior to the actual creator of the stories that made them successful. And right now, this petition, again, has nearing about 75,000 signatures. Some of the top remarks being that the fact that the writers aren't fans of the original work should have been an issue at the beginning. People don't want some idiot adaptation. We want The Witcher. The writers suck. Henry Cavill is Geralt. The writers should be fans of the franchise they're writing content for. If they want to make their own show up, do that and stop being so selfish as to think you are more important than the damn franchise. Pathetic. And that is the overall sentiment with this current ordeal. We'll have to wait until some sort of statement comes from the showrunner Lauren Schmidt Hissrich. Right now she has been quiet about all of this. Obviously there are some other Witcher projects in development. There's a family-friendly Witcher something supposed to be coming, and then obviously The Witcher Blood Origins, which is again a giant origin story. I believe that premieres in a couple of months. But yeah, this is bad for their biggest franchise, one of their biggest franchises, Netflix, just falling apart, as it's become clear that there's unhappiness with the direction that this show is taking from the leading actor, which will now be the former leading actor very, very soon. But anyway, what do you make of all of this chaos with The Witcher? Are you planning to watch Season 3, or are you going to be watching and then jumping out after Season 4? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or if you found any informative value, and make sure to follow my other social media accounts for updates on new videos. Links are always down in the description below. I'm most active on Twitter, giving opinions on news that I do not always get in a video form, so do make sure to follow me over there. Also check out my Discord for all sorts of discussion on games. And again, thank you for joining. Consider subscribing for more videos like this. I'll see you later.